What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Flask API tutorial thing series where we're going through kind of how to build simple APIs, simple websites, simple things with Python Flask. If you didn't watch the first episode, we kind of set up some stuff. We created a very, very dead simple API, and we talked a little bit about rendering. And we're going to focus a little bit more on rendering today, and it's weird. So rendering templates with Flask, which is what we're going to be going over in this episode, is not like really even the best application of Flask. You're only going to be able to create like fairly simple websites with this, or kind of dashboards and things like that. I've used it before to create simple dashboards kind of like on the fly when I've built APIs with Flask, but it's not really the best application of Flask, being honest. And Flask wasn't really built for that. It's mainly built as like a back-end technology to create APIs, and it's very, very good at that. But we are going to go over how to use templates because there are some kind of like good applications of that. So let's talk about what templates are. Templates are essentially HTML files that use an engine called Jinja to create dynamic, web pages. And I use the term dynamic kind of loosely. It's not like JavaScript frameworks that you may have used like React. They are dynamic. You can, dynamically insert values within these web pages, but it's kind of limited to like what you can really do. So let's kind of create an example of this. In order to use templates in Flask, you have to create a templates folder. Use the exact same directory that you have your app hosted in, and make sure that you actually name the templates folder templates, just like this. And this is going to be where we put all of our HTML templates. So we're going to create one for hello user, and we're going to create an error template. All right. So just right off the bat, we're not going to change anything. Let's just go ahead and make sure that we can run this code. So I am using the command prompt on Windows in order to run it. And in order to do that, you have to run the command set flask _app. And we're going to give it the directory that we're currently in, /api.py. And then when we run this, we will be running our Flask application. So if we go ahead and open up, I'm going to open up a new window here and drag it over. We can go to 127.0.0.1, 5000. Press that, we get our hello world. And from last time, we also created a couple of other routes. Let's do /user. And we've got user not found because we didn't give it an actual username. So let's go ahead and give it a username. Let's see, we've got our data here. Let's give it just Joe Mama. Simple enough. Believe we did it like this, username is equal to Viking_dev. Let's do that one. All right, so we've got our post, we've got the creation date, just basically all of the stuff that we set up in the last video. So that's pulling from this data right here using our /user endpoint. Now, if we wanted something that was just a little bit prettier, obviously this is just, it's printing out the raw JSON. That's not great, honestly. We can use templates to create something that's just a little bit prettier, a little bit more user-friendly, and that's going to be what we go through here. So we're going to use the hello user HTML kind of template in order to do this. I think it's HTML:5. So that's going to give us some boilerplate here, and we are going to call this hello for right now. We're going to change this here in a second, but what templates allow you to do is they allow you to take variables programmatically from your API and insert them into HTML web pages. And it uses a very ugly kind of template language called, or I don't know if the language or the engine are called Jinja. But basically what we're going to do is we're going to use our API to insert values into our actual front end. and I use front end, like it is a front end, but it's going to be ugly, and there's not just a ton that you can do with it without adding like a lot of other frameworks to it. I've never actually built like a React plus Flask like front end. I don't know why you would do that, because React does everything completely differently, but it may be something that you can do. I haven't really looked into it. It's also not the greatest way to do it. So let's just pause talking about all of the theoretical stuff that's way out of depth for me. And we are going to go ahead and actually create a templatized web page. So we are going to actually create a separate route in order to render this stuff. We want to keep all of our kind of API routes separate from our front end routes. This is a very non-standard way of doing this. It is a way to do it, but it's a very non-standard way to do it. You know, to have your front end and your back end within the same app. But we're going to do it just for kind of, I guess, simplicity's sake. Let's actually create a new section. Backend API section. And we're going to create a, we're going to actually keep this in our front end section. Render section. So this is going to kind of make sure that we can keep organized so that later on when we're dealing with our API, we don't have to actually look at all of our front end and like rendering section, because that, you know, that can get nasty. So we've got our front end render section. Let's create our new route. So at app.route, and I'm just going to name this userRender. And we are going to define user_render. And that's really, we're really kind of going to do this the exact same way that we did in the last episode, including with the methods. We are only going to allow the get method because this is a front end like route. We're really just going to be interacting with it with our web browser. We don't want to create like post requests and handle like, you know, kind of complex stuff like that. Since this is just for the front end, we're just going to be handling our get requests. So we've got our user render function, and now we are going to grab our username equals request.get.args.get username, and we're going to enter our main try except block. And here actually we're going to throw an error. Let's see, a good manual way to throw an error. So try one, let's just do, I don't know. We won't worry about that. We're actually going to make a way to render two different templates. As we showed before, we've got our hello user template and we've got an error template. We're going to basically be able to reach both of those from within the section. And I'll kind of show you how. I'm going to go ahead and code in like the actual user template first, and then we'll code in our error template after that. So we're going to do user file is equal to open, and this is going to be exactly like the way we did it in the last episode, data slash, and then username.json, and we are just going to read it. And then user.json is equal to json.loads, userfile.read, and userfile.close. You want to make sure that there is very little chance that you can forget to close your files. It's just, I guess, good habit and will eventually save you a lot of like headache later on with respect to like efficiency and things like that. So we're going to load in our creation date. User JSON, and it is called creation_date. And we are going to do our posts is equal to user JSON posts. And now we are going to actually render the template. This is the part that we've all kind of been waiting for. This has kind of been house cleaning up until this point, like repeating stuff that we talked about in the last episode, and obviously, you know, interacting with JSON, but you probably already know how to do that. So we are going to return render template, and we are going to return the hello user template, and make sure to include .html with it. And we are going to start passing in the variables. So we're going to do username is equal to username, creation date is equal to creation date, and posts is equal to posts. So we're going to pass all of that to our actual template itself. And in our accept, we are going to actually pull out the exception, and we are going to pass it to our error template, return render underscore template. And this is going to be error.html, and exception is equal to STRE. So we've actually got to import render template. I think that's just from Flask. Render template. And let's start messing around with the templates themselves. Let's start with our error one, because that one's a lot easier. So let's go ahead and do the boilerplate for our error template. We're going to call this error. And within the body of this page, it's just like normal HTML, except for the parts that aren't. I know that sounds dumb, but basically we're going to create an H1 here, just like we would in normal HTML, exception or error. And then we're going to create an H3, exception, and a line break. Oop, BR. Now here is where we get into the actual template itself. We're going to create a paragraph tag, and in the middle of this paragraph tag, it's the simplest thing ever. All we're going to do here is create 2 curly brackets and throw in exception. And what that's going to do is our backend is going to pass an error, or pass this string right here to this variable. And when it renders the page, anywhere that it sees these curly brackets, it's going to try to insert something there. So it's going to look for the exception variable that we create right here, or define right here, and it's going to go ahead and print that out between 2 paragraph tags. So these could be paragraph tags, they could be href tags, they can be literally anything with an HTML. So let's look at what this does by intentionally creating a situation where we've got an error. So we're just going to do username +1, and that's, we could do it in a couple of different ways. But let's go ahead and restart our Flask application with Flask run. Apparently not. URLs must start with the leading slash. Let's see where we created this error. Way up here somewhere. Let's see. Man, this is just an ugly debug message. All right, I'm going to try to find it manually. I'm assuming, yeah, right here. /userRender. I don't know why that wasn't easier to find. So clear it out, restart with Flask run. We are running now, and let's go back to our web page, and we are using the userRender endpoint. So we've got an exception or error, then we print out exception, and this right here is the actual exception itself. No such file or directory, /data/Viking_dev1.json. Now, a couple of things to note here. This would be horrible security practice in prod. You don't want to print out your error messages like that are coming directly from your backend in prod. That's going to give hackers or security researchers or literally anybody else just tons of insight into how you're laying out your directories, how your app runs, all of that. You really, really don't want to do that. So instead, you would want to create kind of custom error messages that don't return as much information and don't give hackers as much information about how your app runs. But this is, this is how our templates work. They're going to print out the raw exception right here because that's what we pass to them. So here, like in our actual exception handling, we can create custom exception messages, based on the raw exception message that we get back from our actual Python. And, that's going to be what we send back to the user. But we're not worried about that right now. Let's go back and actually start doing stuff with our user HTML, starting by, we're going to create the title of this page to be username. So it's just going to put your username up in the title of the page. And here in the body, we're actually going to start doing stuff. So let's do let's make it an H3 tag and do username again. Or let's just do hello username. And then we're going to print out the creation date. Let's do an H2 tag for that. And, well, let's make it H4, be a little bit smaller. Creation date. And I believe I just named it creation_date. So all of this is fairly simple stuff. Nothing we really need to like explain anymore. You know, it's basically exactly what we did before, but I'm kind of showing that you can put these variables anywhere in the page. So if we go back over here, let's fix our intentional error there, save it, restart, and let's go to our page with Viking Dev. And we get hello Viking Dev, creation date 2021 11/10. We go back over here just to kind of verify that's what we are actually, you know, that's our actual creation date. And we can actually go back and do the same thing for Joe Mama. I think it's just Joe Mama. And we get a different creation date. All right, so let's start talking about how we could render these posts. These posts we have as just a raw array, and currently we're not doing anything with them. What you can do within the Jinja engine, which is a really annoying thing to say, is you can do for loops just like you can in any other programming language. It looks ugly, but you can do it. So in order to access it, we're going to put it between single curly braces this time. And it's actually going to be single curly braces and these percent signs. And we're going to say for post in posts, which is what we're passing in up here in api.py. We are passing it in, let's get some screen real estate back. We are passing it in right here, the exact same way that we're passing in username and creation date, we're passing in posts. So if we go back to our template, we're going to say for post in posts, and then we're going to close out the for loop here. And we're going to say and for. Now, here's where we actually render our post. And I'm going to do it very, very simply because there's no point in making it like, pretending like we're going to make it any prettier than we actually are. And we're going to do, let's go ahead and put the username in between this, or in this for loop as well. So let's do H4. And let's do username said, and then we'll have the actual body of the post here. Post. So as you can see, the main part of this is you've got your actual for loop, and we can actually indent this here to kind of make it a little bit more clear that we're within the for loop. You've got your for loop, the for loop that starts here, and you can do for post in post, which is the array that we're passing in within our actual API within our app. And we're passing in the array, and we're saying for post in post. We want to render username said, and we're going to insert username dynamically, and then we're going to insert the actual post body itself. So let's quit and rerun it. We get no errors, thank God. And let's do this on Viking_dev. And Viking Dev said, like the video, Viking Dev said, and subscribe for more development content. So we can do the same thing for Joe Mama. This is a test post, and this is another test post. And if we wanted to verify, we can look within our posts right here. And we get, this is a test post, this is a test post, please ignore. So these are what we created with our backend, like kind of post creation thing. And these are the posts that we actually have within our body. So the other posts don't actually matter. I haven't created that functionality yet to like look at these posts right here. But we will talk about that in the next video. And that's it. Really, like, there's more complex functionality within Flask. And there's more complex functionality within Flask's render template engine. But there's not really too much of a point in just diving right into that, like right off the bat. These are the basics that you can use to create kind of the very beginnings of an API dashboard. So API dashboards, I typically don't think of them as super complex, very pretty web pages. I think of them as, I want to make sure that I can properly read and write my data in my API, Therefore, I'm going to create a very, very ugly version of a front end that all it's going to really do is CRUD. It's going to be create, read, update, and delete. So all I really want to do is make sure that my API properly functions, and in order to do that, I need a very simple front end that is going to read or handle reading and writing to my data set. And that's what I typically use Render Template for. There are probably incredible apps that people have created just with Flask Templates. I believe Tech with Tim, who is like my inspiration for a lot of these series, I believe he's built an entire like fairly decent looking blog in just Python, and I am pretty sure a lot of that is built in Flask. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I'm pretty sure a lot of it is built in Flask. So you can build actual full web apps within Flask. I just, having used React previously, I like React. I've learned it fairly well. I'll probably do another series on just React development, but I typically would want to use something a little bit more fully featured, a little bit more built for front end, and use Flask for what it's good for, which is APIs. And Flask is very good at APIs. I don't want this to sound like I'm crapping on Flask, because front end is just not what Flask was really built for, in my opinion. So that's about it. Thank you so much for watching this video and this series in general. If you missed the first one, it's going to be kind of important to catch up. So watch that first one, and if you like the series in general, let me know by liking, subscribing, leaving comments, all of that other fun stuff. It helps me out a ton, and hopefully it'll kind of push this out to more people so I can know, what to do next. Take it easy. Peace.